Hello everyone, I am Pranav Metil and I am back with an awesome video on AWS EC2. But before diving into EC2, let us take a look at a scenario where I'll try to relate it with you. Let us say that you are the IT admin for an institution and you want to set up an architecture for the institute where the students can gain access to the resources. So before creating the architecture, you'll have to keep in mind that you will be paying for everything you set up and you'll need to create a database to store all the resources. You'll also need to pay for the compute power to host the server holding the resources, and you'll also have to set up load balancers for times when a large audience tries to access the resources. Now, obviously, you'll have to pay for every part of the infrastructure, look after its maintenance, and constantly upgrade it to match the needs. Yeah, I know this sounds really overwhelming, and it actually is. Uh, but the major part of the above process can be avoided by shifting your infrastructure to a cloud. In the cloud, all the resources necessary are set up and you just need to configure the services to match your needs. And you only pay for the services you use while easily upscaling or downscaling the services. Now, speaking of upscaling and downscaling, the number one resource that needs to be scaled is always compute. And that is what EC2 is. It literally is the abbreviation of Elastic Compute Cloud. So obviously, the question that arises next is, what is EC2? Well, it is basically a CPU that is provided to you to perform compute processes for any task on cloud. So you won't be utilizing the hardware completely. Instead, you will be using it for a small duration and paying for that much time only. I'll be explaining to you how EC2 scales up and down using a simple analogy. Think of EC2 like a pizza restaurant using a rented kitchen. Instead of building one from scratch, the restaurant expects 100 customers today. It rents one kitchen. But if a festival is happening and they expect 1,000 customers, they can rent extra kitchens temporarily, scaling up. After the rush, they return to the single kitchen, that is again scaling down. EC2 allows you to do the same with computing power. So now we'll be taking a look at the components of EC2. So instant times. Look, now when you want to use compute power, you need to allocate how much compute power you need, right? You need not to worry about the amount of power you want to allocate. It is already predefined in the form of instances. There are various tiers of EC2 instances where the power ranges for smaller tasks like website hosting to heavily power consuming tasks like running multiple workforces simultaneously. Now, when we speak of Amazon images, look, it's not like when you allocate the compute power for the task, your work with setting up the compute architecture is done. You also need to configure the instances to smoothly perform the task. But AMI solves that problem by creating a pre-configured template to assist you with the task workflow. Security groups. As the name suggests, these are a set of instructions that control who can access the instance. And Elastic IP. This is basically the core identity of your instance. This is a unique ID that can be changed and is a sure shot method to identify the instances. So with that, we'll take a look at the uses. It can be used to host a website and is really low compute task. It can also be used as a game server. Now, this task requires a really high compute power as the delivery of the content requires a really low latency so as to not disturb the user experience. Next, there's data processing. This is an extremely high compute consuming process where the really large chunks of data are processed quickly. And that's it for today's lesson. And let us meet next time where I'll be covering the rest of the services.